we are going to talk about how to rationalize a set. So the simple way is that when do you think you have to rationalize? That is one question, so that when you get a problem, you should know what to do. So mathematics is a precise language. Before you do something, you have to make sure that what you are doing is appropriate. The conditions are met before you can move on and proceed and use certain rules or formula. So when do you rationalize? That is what we are going to have a look at, and how to rationalize a set. Now, you rationalize when, pay a close attention, you rationalize when you are having a set or a radical in a denominator, right? You rationalize when you are having a radical or a set in the denominator. So when you have a denominator here, this is what I mean by the denominator. The number at the down is what we call the denominator. So what is a set? Maybe you have a video on that, right? A simple way to identify a set. So the summary to that is that a number under the radical sign, this is what we call by the radical, the square root sign. Is that okay? So a number under that, everything becomes what? A set. So when you have a set under a rational function, this is a rational function. So let's assume that, let's ignore the technical terms. Let's say you have a set, a number under the square root sign, all are being below what? All are being divided by a certain number. We don't care whatever is at the top here. It can be anything. This can be even human being. We don't care. You rationalize when you have a radical or a set under the denominator. Is that okay? So when you have a rational or a set under the denominator, the first thing you have to have a look at is that you need to rationalize. And how do you rationalize a set? So you rationalize by what? Multiply. So let's assume this is a simple one. You have 1 over square root of 2. And then how do you rationalize? Moment you see this thing, you have to make sure that you rationalize. Why? Why? Because we have a radical at the down. Is that okay? So you rationalize by multiplying. This is a simple problem over here. So 1 over square root of 2, you rationalize by multiplying the denominator over itself. Right? This is just a rule in how to rationalize a set. You have to obey that. You rationalize by multiplying everything here. The denominator here is square root of 2. Then you rationalize by what? Multiplying the denominator over itself. Whatever is down here, you multiply that by what? Over itself. Is that okay? You multiply everything here by the denominator over itself. This is what I mean by the denominator, the number at the down. Is that okay? So as you can see, I'm having 1 over what? Root 2. We are multiplying that by square root of 2 over what? Root 2. Right? This is just a rule, a law. By the way, if it makes sense, fine. If it doesn't make sense, then maybe leave everything for the advanced mathematics. And yours is to just obey the rules and pass the mathematics and move on to the next stage of your life. Now, so how do you multiply? Okay, if you haven't watched our video on how to multiply and then add and subtract on what under said, you may consider watching that. I will leave a link under the description below. Okay, this is how you multiply. So you multiply top by top. This is just like a normal fraction, right? You multiply top by top and then down by down. So 1 multiplied by 2 and then root 2 multiplied by root 2. Is that okay? So 1 times root 2 will give me a root 2, and then down here root 2 times root 2, right? Will give me a root 4. You can see that, root 4. So here the top here will be root 2, and then root 4 will give me what? 2. Can you see that? Root 4. This is a perfect number. If you don't know what a perfect number is, what it means is that when you take a square root of that number, it will give you what? 2 exactly. Is that okay? Now let's look at a pure past question, exam question, and how they set the questions. So that is what we do on this channel, and then we help you to tackle any math past question, so that when you get any problems, you won't be panicked. So let's have a look at the question. We are having a problem, so let's have a look at that. So here we go. Here we go. We are having. So that's the question. Question number 3 says that express root 2 plus root 5 all over root 10 in the form of what? A root 5 plus B root 2, where A and B are rational numbers. Is that okay? So we are going to express that in the form of A root 5 plus what? B root 2, where A and B are what? Rational numbers. Let's look at how to solve that problem. So the book there is what? A plus series. So credit to Mr. Ishmael Adams, one of the great mathematicians in Ghana. So we are given a problem. They say we should express that in this form, right? We should express that in this one. A root 5 plus what? B root what? Root 2. So what do you do? How do you solve that? Is that okay? How do you solve that? Once again, you need to know the techniques, the rule, and the tools to use available at your disposal. So the first thing you have to consider is that root 2 plus what? Root 5 all over what? Root 10. So as you can see a root number at the denominator. Can you see that? That tells you that you have to rationalize. And how do you rationalize? You rationalize by multiply everything and by what? The denominator over itself. So let's look at that. This is what I'm having here. I'm having root 2 plus root 5 all over what? Root 10. Then multiply by the denominator, this one. This is just a law. You need to obey the law, then move on. Then this one is what? Root 10 over what? Root 10. Then when you do your multiplication very well, you can see that the 2 is multiply this, and then the root 5 is also multiplying that. So root 2 by what? Root 10 plus what? Root 5 by what? Root 10 all over top to down, and then down to down, right? Or maybe top to top and down to down. That is it. So root 10 times root 10. Exactly what I'm having over here. So when you do your multiplication, you arrive at a point where you get what? Root 10 times what? So 2 times root 10 over here, still under the radical. And then 5 times what? 10, still under the radical. You can see that, right? And then you do your multiplication. This is here 2 times 10. That will give us what? A root 20, right? We are not doing anything to the radical yet. You can see that. So here times this one also gives us what? Root 50. Then all over what? Root 100. So when you do a simplification, how to simplify? You may once again consider watching the introduction to the set. Is that okay? How do you simplify? You need to look for a perfect number, right? This is not in its basic form. What I mean by the basic form is that you have to reach the stage whereby you cannot do anything to the number again. Is that okay? But here we can still do something to that. What can we do? We can find a perfect number. So with the blue ink over here, you can see that 4 is the highest perfect number out of 20. So what I mean by the perfect number is that when I take a square root of that number, it will give me a whole number, right? A whole number is that maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So the highest perfect number here is that if you want to know how to look at a perfect number, is to multiply like 2 squared. Is that okay? So let us assume I'm having 2 squared, right? Gives me 4, then 3 squared, right? 4 squared. And so on and so forth. This thing gives me what? A perfect number. So this one will be 4, this one will be 9, this one will be 16. So when I take the square root of this, I will see that this one will give me 2, this one will give me 3, this one will give me 4, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to set, what I have to do is that you have to look up to the what? The highest perfect number, right? You have to look for what? The highest perfect number. So the highest perfect number out of the 20 is 4. So 4 times 5, right, will give me 20. The same thing, the same 20 over here. So 4 times 5 will give me what? 20. And then 25 is the highest perfect number, right? Even though 4 is there, 4 times 4 cannot be possible, right? So the highest one is what? 25. 25 times 2 will give me what? 50. The same thing, we are just splitting this one into 2. Is that okay? So let's move on. Now the down one, when I take a square root of this one, it will give me what? 10. Right? Okay, perfect. Now we are the game continues. So what I'm going to do, we are going to split this one into 2. So we have a root 4 times what? Root 5, and then all into one bracket. We are just splitting this one into 2 different parts. The same applies to the second one. That is what? Root 25 times what? Root 2. Is that okay? And then the down one still remain the same, which is the 10. Now what do? You do your calculation perfectly. You consider square root of 4 here, it will give you 2, right? This 5 here, we cannot do anything to this root 5 over here. Is that okay? This is what we mean by what? In its basic or simple form. So here we maintain the root 5 over here. Plus what? 5 times what? The square root of 25 give us what? 5. Right? 5 times what? Root 2. Is that okay? 5 times root 2. Because the root 2 here, we cannot do anything to the root 2. So the game continues over here. Here, 2 multiplied by this one will give me 2 root 5. And then 5 multiplied by that one will give me what? 5 root what? Root 2. So the down one, we are not doing anything to that. So let's check what is happening. Let's check what is happening. So we are having 2 root 5 plus what? 5 what? Root 2. Remember the game, because we have been asked to express. Let's have a look at that. We have been asked to express this thing, this thing, right? This thing in the form of what? A root 5 plus what? B root 5. It means that a certain number has to be attached or has to be a friend of what? Root 5, and then another number has to be a friend of what? Root 2. Is that okay? So we are looking for these friends of what? The root 5 and root 2. Right? Whereby this and this are rational. If you don't know what a rational number is, it's something over another thing, right? Something over another thing. I'm not saying it's 1 over 2, it's just by assumption. So if I want to replace this one, it can be what? A over B. Right? This is what we call a rational number. So when you see this guy somewhere, you can call it what? A rational number. So perfectly. Now we are here. So how can we make this one look like? Oh, because over here we cannot do anything again. I will say that everything is what? In its simple form. So what we can do is that we need to split this one into two, because this guy, 2 people are at the top, right? These 2 guys are sharing what? 10. So let's share this one to this guy, and then let's share the 10 to also that guy. So we can split this one into 2 by saying that 2 root 5 over 10, right? Plus 5 root 2 all over 10. Is that okay? So when split this thing like this, you can see everything clearly, right? Perfectly. We have our 5 there, we have our root 2 there. So who is the friend of what? Root 5, and who is also a friend of what? Root 2. So a friend of root 5 is 2 over 10. You can see that. A friend of root 5 is 2 over 10. Anything attached to root 5. And a friend of what? Root 2 is also what? 5 over 10. Anything attached to what? Root 2. Is that okay? So when we do the comparison, this is how they are asking you to express what? Our expression over there. So they say we should express our question in this form: a root what? 5 plus what? B root what? Root 2. Is that okay? So who is the friend of what? When you do the comparison, over here, you can see that anyone who is attached to root 5 is a friend of root 5, and anyone who is attached to what? Root 2 is also a friend of what? Who is attached to root 5 is what? A. I will say that A is attached to root 5. So when you do the comparison, you can see that A is equal to 2 over 10, and then B is also equal to what? 5 over 10, because B is attached to root 2 and then A is also attached to what? Root 5. Is that okay? So, and then when you reduce this one to the simple form, obviously something like this is not in the simple form. You have to reduce it into the simple form. Then 2 will go into this F1, then 2 will go into here by 5, right? That's why I'm having 1 over 5 here, and then B also gives me what? 1 over 2. Is that okay? So A is what? 1 over 5, and then B is what? 1 over 2. This is what the question is asking us to find. Is that okay? This is very simple, but if you've enjoyed this video so far, give us a like, share the video, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel so that when you post any video like this, you'll be updated. So it's just a step-by-step, systematically. Is that okay? Do everything step by step, one by one. If you have any problem, don't forget to comment down below so that we are ready to help you. You may also consider joining our WhatsApp group, whereby we assist you in everything. Thank you for watching.